Hello everyone, my name is Shani Jones and this is KNKY, which stands for Know the New Kinky You. I am your resident certified sex coach and we are here to continue the conversation about non-monogamous sexual relationships, but this time we get into some very specifics. So if you missed it, we've already done a video on threesomes. This video is going to be on swinging, swapping, couples, and orgies. So we've defined monogamous sex as one-on-one. It's committed. There are no real introductions of other people. Now, there's a difference between monogamous sex and consenting non-monogamous sex and cheating. Consenting non-monogamous sex is really when you empower your partners to have a say in yours and their sexual experiences. Cheating, you take all of that away. So this is not a conversation about cheating. The assumption that we're making here is that everyone involved knows what's going on, is a willing participant, and we are doing it for the benefit of the relationship. So whether you are dating or married, whenever you're in a long-term relationship, the frequency and the intensity of your sex life can change. So, a lot of us go through the experience where very early on in the relationship, the sex is hot and heavy. It's very intense. It's something that, we look forward to. But over time, we run into various limitations, whether it's a matter of we've established a routine, and in that routine, things just kind of, they come home, kids get ready for bed, you have sex, you go to sleep, you wake up in the morning, or a lot of scenarios where you're too tired after your day and maybe you have sex in the morning. That's good too. Or maybe you run into this routine where you just don't have the sex that you want or need as often as you want. And again, this is why you have someone like me who is a sex coach, to certified sex coach, to help you through those particular moments. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to spice things up in your relationship. So we use fantasy, whether it's, your imagination while you're in the moment. It could be dress up and role play. It could be anything. So introducing fantasy into your sex life is a way to spice things up, as well as using porn. Again, I don't have any objections against porn. Porn is, for me, a form of entertainment. It's not something that should be used as a teaching tool or a baseline for how everyday couples engage in sexual activity. But it is something where it's like, okay, I can watch it. I can see if there's a new move. I can, have that voyeuristic aspect where I'm watching someone else have sex. And for a lot of people, that's a big turn on. We've also talked about threesomes. But again, threesomes is that willingness to bring a third person into your relationship for the purposes of sex and or companionship. But for this purpose, we're talking about sex. Now, there can be some concerns, and we talked about last video. We can talk about jealousy. We can talk about favoritism. Sometimes it might be a thought that, somebody is preferred sexually over the other. The way we combat this, again, is, of course, communication. Now, when we talk about swinging to me levels the playing field, because again, in a threesome, you usually have a couple and a third person, and the third person can probably feel like, an outsider. And I remember a story of a friend of mine telling me, that she actually ended up in a relationship with a couple, but she felt that, one, her attraction was more to the female than it was to the male, and she stayed into it longer than she expected to because of that attraction, and that she felt more like a third wheel. So it went from, and we can talk about, this is what we'll talk about in polyamorous relationships, but the threesome turned into something that evolved into something not everybody was happy with. So to me, swinging is more of a balanced role in the situation because, now you have two couples, and let's say that the scenario is heterosexual couples where there is probably an unspoken expectation, that the women could possibly engage in sexual activity together while the men would engage in sexual activity with their partners and the other man's partner. So there's little expectation that the heterosexual men will engage in sex together. Again, there are going to be all kinds of configurations when it comes to swapping. So use my examples as a baseline and apply it to how it is that you see that you would engage based off of your sexual identity and your sexual desires. Now, let's play it out a little bit more. You have a scenario where you have two couples and everybody's having sex at the same time. So everybody can be engaged, or the women can be engaged and the men can be off to the side. All of it can be going on. But you also have what is called swapping, which is when you're actually switching partners out. Now, imagine a scenario where it's like both couples, they start off to the sides, they're together in the same room, but they're not sexually engaged with each other. At some point, the women could become involved, and then there could be the scenario where you switch partners. So when you do that, you're physically swapping partners. Swapping can also mean that you don't necessarily have to be in the same room. You could say like, oh, I got your girl, and you go off and do your own thing. So swapping, again, has a lot of different configurations, just like swinging does, just like threesomes do. How do you find the right couple? We talked about it with the threesomes. You could, first understand the status of your relationship. It's important to make sure that if you're a strong couple, that you are engaging in sexual activity with another strong couple, right? Whether that couple is already a friend, which could be beneficial, because now you're creating a scenario where, oh, not only are we friends and we can go out and hang out at each other's houses and, have play dates or anything like that, we're now comfortable enough with each other that we can now engage in this level of sexual activity and intimacy as a group and as friends. Nothing wrong with that. You also have to consider, whether or not it's going to be a stranger. And there are websites and, FetLife and Adult Friend Finder and, Craigslist. You can find other couples that have similar interest in what it is that you have an interest in. But again, just like with meeting anybody new, so some of the stuff that I say you're going to hear over and over again, just like with meeting somebody new, you have to be careful. You have to understand their sexual history. You have to understand the strength of their relationship. Contact information. You just have to know. So again, same things apply when we're talking about the threesome. So I'm not going to go as in depth with it because we talked about it, but so if you missed it, you can go back to the threesomes video. But we're talking about chemistry and expectations, making sure that you are meeting up and having the conversation and getting to know each other and make sure that everybody's comfortable and on the same page, and you've talked about the rules and, understanding again whether or not the women, is there an expectation for the women to engage in sexual activity together? Is there an expectation for the men to engage in sexual activity together? There's an obvious expectation that, each man is comfortable watching another man have sex with his wife. Again, please don't hold me to the gender roles. It's just easier to find one and stick to it. Now, just for the sake of argument, if it's 4 men, you still have to be comfortable with watching your partner have sex with somebody else. So the scenarios are the same. It's that level of comfort that we're talking about. Now, we talked about protection with threesomes. Now you're introducing more people into the scenario. So you definitely have to think about protection. And in this scenario, and even in the threesome scenario, protection is important because let's say one person has an STI. Let's look, we're going to go to the STI versus the pregnancy scenario. If one person, let's say that a man is wearing a condom, he's protected, and if one of the females has an STI, perhaps she doesn't know, perhaps she does, but this is why we have our conversations, and this is why we get sexual history and status before we do this. But if he's protected, but he has sex with the condom and with the one woman, and then has sex with that same condom with another woman, now you're transferring her STD to somebody else. You're protected, perhaps, but you have to think about all the way through being smart. Now, like we talked about, the starting into a swinging situation, most of the time you're going to start with a scenario that you're comfortable with. You have that voyeurism where you're watching somebody else and you get curious about what it is that they're doing and how they're making their partner feel. And if their partner is getting off, then you're like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get into this. So, it's really just creating that vibe and that environment that's like, you know what? I'm here, I'm in it, I'm willing to do this, with the understanding and security of your relationship that there should be nothing based on this other couple that should negatively influence or impact your relationship. Again, you have to decide whether or not it is a one-time thing or whether it is a recurring situation. How does it work? Who's allowed to talk to who? Are you all friends? Can the girls chit chat and go to the movies, and will the guys be like, oh, they must be out fucking? Or, can the guys go, have a game of poker, and then the women think, oh, well, they must be out having sex with other women because now they've had threesomes with us, or they've had a swinging relationship with us. Communication is the key. Trust, respect in your relationship, making sure that everybody's on the same page, making sure that you are playing by the rules of engagement and that everybody is walking away and treating the friendship, the relationship, the sexual experience with respect. Again, infidelity happens. It's a risk. Pregnancy happens. It is a risk. STDs happen. It is a risk. Now, we went from 3 to 4 when we were talking about threesomes to swinging and swapping. Now we're talking about orgies. Now, if you don't know what an orgy is, good people, an orgy is a sexual free-for-all that you're in a room, hopefully a room, you're in a location where the expectation is that everyone there, to some level, is going to be engaged in a sexual act. So, you've heard of clubs, house parties, different scenarios where people converge, congregate with the purposes of having sex. So you go into a room, you see somebody that you're sexually attracted to, and there is language and terms around this. You can walk up to somebody, ask them, are they playing? You just are trying to get a feel for whether or not that person is willing to engage in sexual activity with you. Now, a lot of times that person is going to be there with someone else. And so again, you have to make sure that, all of the right permissions are had, the right conversations are had, the right understanding is had, but you're in this free-for-all, and you're in this location where there's simultaneous sex being had with multiple partners. Again, it can be great, can be fun, it can be all that you want it to be, but you have to be cognizant of the situation that you're in and how it is that you are creating this environment. I know couples that have said that their relationships have improved and thrived off of these sexual experiences and being able to share their partners with someone else, or having the trust from their partners to understand that sex with someone else isn't, I don't love you anymore, I don't trust you anymore, I don't want to be with you anymore. It's just that I love you, I enjoy sex with you, but I also like sex with other people. I like the variety. I like the sensuality of it. I like the veracity of it. There are a lot of different things. And, if it is something that you're curious about, I would also suggest that, again, start with the conversation. And when you have conversations with people about certain fetishes or kinks or curiosities that you have related to sex, if you're the person that's wanting to engage in that conversation, be honest, but be aware that your partner might not be as receptive as you want them to be initially. But you have to kind of massage them, talk to them, get them prepared, get them loose, get them willing. Do it. If you're the person that's receiving that information, be open. Be willing to hear them. Understand why it is that they feel the way that they feel. And, understand that there are perhaps certain things that you want, and may not have been 100% comfortable talking to your partner with. And take this as the opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what we're saying. And by the way, this is something that I'm interested in. Use it as a gateway. So, I am Shani Jones. This is KNKY. You can follow me across all social media at DOYOU I'm a resident certified sex coach. I appreciate you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel, share, like, comment. Let me know what you're thinking about this topic, and let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about. I will see you again soon as we continue the conversation.